Hello guys, welcome back. This is Amir, and in this video tutorial you will learn the basics of ReactJS, like how to create a ReactJS project, how to create different components, and how the components communicate with each other, and how the components are made to act like your website pages and so on. So let's get started. So for the ReactJS development, I use Visual Studio Code as a code editor, and I have opened the terminal of Visual Studio Code as well, and I am at an empty ReactJS tutorial folder. So to create a ReactJS project, the command is npx create react app, and then you will name it like my app, and this command will take around 1 to 2 minutes. So I will pause the video here, and once it's done I will come back. Okay, so command is completed now. So it has created a ReactJS project for us, my app, and it has also installed all of the dependencies as the node modules, and I created few other folders and files. And in the public folder, the main file is the index.html. That will be the only HTML file for our website. And in this index.html, there is the one div with the id of root. That will be the only div or the element in the index.html file in which all of our components we will create in reactjs will be inserted in this div. So we will see how that will work. And this is the grid to ignore the files for the repositories. And the package.json, it contains all of the dependencies required for our project, like react dom scripts. And it also contains the scripts to start the local server, to build it and test it. And here is the readme. It shows how to start the local server and test it, what are the commands, and few other documentation. And in the source folder, and the entry point will be index.js, and in the index.js we have a package react dom that is also from the react, and it has a function render that accepts two parameters. First parameter is what to render, and second parameter is where to render. And for this one, where we want to render it, we will get the element with id root. So that is the div we declared in index.html. And what to render, we can write it, we can write anything here, like any string, any javascript, any component. So suppose we want to render the hello world as a string. So for that we will write a string saying, suppose hello world, and just save it. And to run, let's open the terminal. We will cd to my app and then npm start. So it will actually start the local server. So here you go, it has printed the hello world and I started the local server. So let me shrink this one and shrink this one too, so that we can see the code as well as our website. And here we have asked to print the hello world, so let's try to add exclamation mark and save it. And when it's reload, it shows the updated string. And we can pass anything here that is from javascript. So suppose we create a variable, we can say that message is equal to, suppose, an h1 tag, and we say here is hello world from h1 tag. And here instead of the string, we will pass the message and save it, refresh. Here you go, hello world from h1 tag. So if you inspect it and see the elements, sorry, here you go. So there is a div of id root, and in that it will be the h1 what we have declared here, right? And saying hello world from h1 tag. And we can add any type of component we will create in react.js, and we will pass it here and it will render. So to create the components, there are two type. We can create components based on classes and based on functional components. So the class based components are a little old, those are not used too much right nowadays. So let's create a functional component. So for that we will create a function name, suppose message, and in the function we will return something. Let's return the same h1 tag, got from here and put it here. Let's add some narration and remove this one, and here instead of the message we will add this message component. So to add a message component, the syntax is we will start from the angle bracket and write the name of the component and then close the angle bracket. This is sort of the XML, or in the React.js it is called the JSX. So JavaScript and XML, a mix of. Save it and refresh it here. So still it is saying hello world from h1 tag. So let's remove this, save it, refresh, here you go. And if you open the HTML, it shows it is again an h1 saying hello world in the div of root. So this was here in the index.html. Okay, so let's create few other components. Let's add one other suppose p tag, and say ReactJS tutorial, right? Save it. So it gives us an error. That is because we can return only a single element. So for that we will what we will do, we will wrap it in a empty fragment. And right now what we are doing is we are returning a single empty fragment, and in that there could be multiple elements. Save it, refresh, there you go, the hello world. Refresh it, and hello world React.js tutorial. So in the body, the div, then h1, and then the p tag. So what we are returning here, it will be appended in the root div. Okay, so let me close it here, this one. Okay, so also we can instead of writing this p tag here, we can create a separate component, and like function, let's call it tutorial message, and we will return the p tag from here. And instead of the p tag, we will write here is the tutorial, this one. Refresh it, here you go. And also if this component want to communicate through this one, suppose instead of the React.js tutorial, what we want to do is we want to pass a parameter here, and that parameter should be displayed here. So suppose we will pass a message here, and it should be displayed here instead of a hard-coded message. So for that we will add the props. So the concept of props is similar to what we have in the dex in the HTML. We have the attributes like id attribute, the class attribute. So similar concept in the JSX. So we will pass it a message, and the message will be, sorry, ReactJS tutorial. And here it will get all the, so the params, or we can call it props. That is a more good way, because these are actually the props. And in the props it will contains all of the props. We can pass more than one props here. So it will contain a list or object that will contain all of the props passed into to that component. So like it will, if we call props.message, it will refer to this one. And if we call it, suppose another message, suppose we call it thanks, right? And this will be show the props.message. And actually to render anything which is JavaScript, we will append that into a curly braces. So if we want to render the simple strings, that will be a simple string. And if we want to render the variable, it will be in the curly braces. So we have a curly braces here, curly braces here. So props.message, and then suppose we will render the props dot another message, and just save it, refresh. Here you go. So it has passed ReactJS tutorial and then another message as a props, and we are rendering the props here. And we can also destructure it right away here. So instead of getting props dot, so we can do is write the curly braces here, and we will say message and another message here. And it will actually get all the props and destructure them into the message and other message, the same variable name we have used here. So instead of props dot, it will be the simple message and other message. Save it, refresh, same. Let's change it to thanks for watching. Save it. Here you go. So now we have created a component tutorial message, and we have used it here, and we can use it multiple times as well. So suppose uh, we have tutorial message, and here suppose we say the message is hi, and another message is suppose there, and it will just show hello world, then it will show hi there, and then ReactJS tutorial, thanks for watching. Let's save it, refresh. So here you go. Okay, so that is the way we can compose different components into another component. So we have a tutorial message here, and we have composed this into a message, and message is composed here. And this is the way we can create multiple components in the application, and ultimately they will compose and will make the whole application, right? So like they have provided the boilerplate app component. So let's, instead of the message, let's print that app component. Just save it and just refresh. Here you go. that is the component that they have provided here. So the app, they have imported app component from .app file. So this is the app file, and it contains this is a component like we have created here, the message. It does not it contains it accepts the parameters, but right now it does not accept any parameter right now. And what it does is it returns a single element div, and then under that it returns a header, then there is an image, this one, and then some text here, and then the a tag here, this one. So the hierarchy of elements. So that is a single page website. So let's proceed further and add few pages. So like a home page, and then about page, and something like that. So for that we will be adding some third-party libraries. So also we will learn how to integrate the third-party libraries, and for that we will first install the npm packages for that. So for that we will be installing an npm package react router tom. So it actually give us a way to switch between different routes, and to render whatever we want to render for a particular route. So let's try to get rid of this one, the boilerplate code. Okay, so let's import the React router from React router tom, that is a browser router, and then there is route, and we will be using the switch as well. Okay, so here we will be adding all of our routes of our application. So let's get rid of this one as well. So let's start from the browser router. The first as you see we can only return the one element or one component. So we have returned one component here, and under that we will be declaring our other components. So let's try to add a switch component, and under the switch, so let's try to configure our route. So the first route is suppose with the path of, so the path is a prop that it accepts. So suppose that is about, and here we can return something, or we can even say here that it is about, so it will render about. So if we return here some component, it will render that component. And that was about, and let's add few more routes. Suppose we say it users, and suppose we call it home. Let's when there is no path, it is on the root path, so let's render the home, and then users, then about, and let's save it, just refresh it. Here you see that we are on the root, and it is rendering the home. And if we say here about, so it is rendering about, and if it is users, it is rendering the users. And as I said earlier that instead of the strings we can render here the components as well. So suppose let's add a component here in the source folder. Let's add, suppose, about.js, and about.js, it will be a function. We can call it about, and what we are returning here is the similar way we added few components in the index.js. So we will be, suppose, returning h1, welcome to ReactJS tutorial, and save it. And in the app, instead of this about, we will be returning this about component. So let import, sorry, we have to export this as well. So export default about, so that we can use it outside of this file. And about from the path of about. Okay, so about, welcome to ReactJS tutorial, what we rendered here, right? So in a similar manner, you can write anything here, any component, anything, and it will ultimately will be rendered here in the application. So you can consider it as a switch and case as per JavaScript. So what it does is it will match the case. If it is at about, it will render this one, and if it is at this path, it will render this, and if it is this path, it will render this. Till now, whatever we have developed is just a static content. So let's proceed further and add some dynamic content. Okay, so for that, let's add a user component and add, suppose, a button in the users component, and to add a list of users. So let's proceed and add a user component, users.js, and it will be a function called users, and let's export default users, and in here we will just return let's return h1 as saying users list for now, and here below that we will be printing the list of users. Okay, so in the app, let's import users from /users, and instead of this user string, let's print out users. Save it, and let's go to the user. Here you see user list. So here let's declare a variable called users list, and let's add few users in the list. So suppose user1 and user2 and user3. And here as I told earlier that for rendering the JavaScript, we will add that in the curly braces. So for that, let's loop over the user list, and it will give us let's call it a user, and we will be returning is let's run h5, and again we are printing the user in curly braces. Okay, so save it. Here you go, user 1 2 3, whatever we have here. Okay, so let's add a button here, and on click of and button we will add users in this list. So add user, and on click function, so first we will prevent defaults, and here we will be pushing a new user here. So let's push it. Suppose we call it a user, and its ID is math.random something, right? Save it. So here you go, we have add user button, but on click of add user it is doing nothing. So let's see what is happening. Open the console and let's print here whether it is calling or not. Button click, save it, and you see button click is printing, so that means our code is executing. And let's add some console here as well. Rendering, so you see it is rendered once, and on click of add but user it is just printing this one, it is not re-rendering the whole component. So because it is not re-rendering, that means user list, so it is not getting the latest user list, so that is why it is not rendering it, the latest user list after we have pushed a new user. So to re-render the components, so there comes a state, so state of the component. So what it does is whenever there is a change in the state, it will re-render the component. So for that let's use state. So it actually takes a parameter of initial state, and then it returns an array of two values. First value is the current value of the state, and the second is the function which we can call to update this state. Okay, so let's call it users list, and then set users list. Initial value we can call it initial users list. Okay, we can call initial user list. So and instead of the push we will be calling this method to update the state. So that will be set users list, and that will be whatever we have already in the user list, and then appending this one, and remove this one. All right, so save it. Use state is not defined, so let's import it. That is actually provided by, this is use state is actually a hook that is provided by the React use state. Sorry, and from React. Okay, so we have user 1 2 3 the initial values, then the add user is added, and after user added it is re-rendering as well. So user added rendering, user added rendering. Let me close this one. So you see user is adding and getting. So this way if we use a state, and on every change of the state it will re-render that component. All right, so that is the way we can make dynamic changes to the components. And suppose uh, in the state we can pass, we can get the initial value from even the props as well. And even we can change the state. Here we change the state based on the click of the button, and we can change the state based on maybe an API call. So there are a lot of options or possibilities available. And to improve the user interface, I have added a series of videos on a well-known UI library and design integration in the ReactJS, along with other tutorials regarding ReactJS. Please check that in the channel, and I will add few links in the description below as well. All right, so that's it for the basics of ReactJS. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.